What we got next? We got our final segment, which is our discussion of all things revolution and black liberation. And today's topic is black capitalism. Um, this is something that has been with us, especially here in the United States, really since we got here and started having free blacks, as they called them, or free Negroes, or whatever they were called at the time, and sort of debates about the most effective means for seeking liberation and or freedom and or equality for the largest number possible of our people. And there are those who have thought that the best thing we can do is to try to get as much wealth as possible, meaning as many rich black people as possible, and use that to gain influence for our group. And that's what's going to get us free. That is something that you can especially find a whole lot of these days, as we're getting black people in this country who are becoming billionaires, talking about their thoughts. I'm not going to spend any time at all talking about those individuals right now. But what I want to really get into is my thesis. And this relates to what we talked about in the last episode about why public policy is something that is going to be essential for black people in the United States empire, getting the freedom that we ultimately deserve and desire. So I made a statement recently on social media saying that supporting black business does not empower the black community. And that struck a nerve with a few folks. Shout out to my dear friend, Trey. I mentioned that I would record some content talking about that topic. It's been a minute, but here it is now today. So there are a lot of reasons why we don't have a very thorough understanding of capitalism. And it is mainly because the capitalist system does not want us thinking deeply about what they're doing to us. So they have fought tooth and nail for many, many decades now to restrict our level of access to information that provides an anti-capitalist critique. But it is essential for us to have that in order to really understand the system that we live in and that we're part of. I could spend a long time explaining this. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. So in a nutshell, capitalist business models are based on the idea of maximizing profit. One of the things that has to happen to that in that system is that you cannot pay workers for the full amount of the value that they produce through their labor if you want to maximize profit, because labor is a cost to the company. So if profit is the bottom line, then you have to pay the worker as little as you can possibly get away with in order to have more money left over at the end that you can put into your pocket. So people talk about getting paid what you're worth and all that, and it's never going to happen in any capitalist enterprise because that is not how the system is built. They cannot pay you what you're worth because that would cut into their profit. They're going to pay you as little as they possibly can so that they have more to pocket. So that is the case whether the employer is black or white or whatever. The employer can never properly financially empower the employees because the name of the game is maximizing profit. And even if you are a conscientious and good-hearted black capitalist employer, if you want to be able to really compete in the capitalist marketplace on equal terms, so to speak, you have to be an exploiter. You cannot decide that I'm just going to pay everybody a real living wage while other corporations in my same, that are my direct competition are paying their lawyers, paying their employees nothing. That's not going to put you in a position to maximize your capital and allow you to really compete with your competition. So the name of the game is, across the board, pay your employees as little as possible. That's just the way it works. And that is why supporting Black business does not empower the Black community, because supporting Black business really only puts money into the pocket of a small number, very small number, of people with Black faces who are, for whatever reason, in the position to become employers of other people. Yeah. So, those people at the top make a nice little chunk of change, and they will have some middle managers, if the business is big enough to do so. They'll have some middle managers who make a less large chunk of change, and then most of the people at the bottom are going to make as little as possible so that the company can maximize its profit. That is not empowering the Black community, because most of the Black people working in that enterprise are going to be the ones at the bottom who are making as little as possible. So even though they might feel good about going to work every day and being in a Black business and seeing a bunch of Black faces, at the end of the day, they're not taking home more money than they would at a white-owned business or any other owned business. So it's not empowerment. It might be psychologically fulfilling, might feel better than going to slave for the white man, but ultimately you're still a wage slave, as Karl Marx called it. So that ain't helping the masses of us get any closer to freedom than we already are. Now, I want to read this quote from Mr. W.E.B. Du Bois from 1907. Around that time, W.E.B. Du Bois worked at Atlanta University, and he held a series of conferences, yearly conferences, to study various aspects of Black life from an academic standpoint. In the 1907 Atlanta conference was all about cooperative economics in the Black community. And Du Bois made this statement in his final resolution, declared that African Americans were in a crisis because, quote, they unwittingly stand at the crossroads between the old trodden ways of individualistic competition and gaining wealth at the expense of the general well-being, and cooperation and capital and labor, which fosters a wide distribution of capital and a more general equality of wealth and comfort. The resolution emphasized that this crisis was not the result of idleness or lack of skill, but rather lack of recognition of the importance of cooperative economic development and the gains made for the race from cooperative economic endeavors. Now, what I just read was actually a quote of a quote. This is from the book Collective Courage, A History of African American Cooperative Economics by Jessica Gordon Nimhard. And she is delivering the history about all of the various kinds of economic cooperation that black people have done in the United States since we got here. And a large part of that history has to do with the teachings and activity of W.E.B. Du Bois, because he may be the single greatest promoter of economic cooperation that we have ever had in our sojourn here in North America because he has been on this topic was on the topic from basically like 1900 to 1960. 60 years of promoting this within the system, outside of the system, every way he possibly could, trying to get influence the other black leaders around him and the people in general to embrace the idea of economic cooperation instead of capitalist individual achievement. And he wrote in his autobiography in 1940 that he regretted that he didn't do more, didn't try harder to promote these things. It's a whole lot of reasons why he didn't, and it didn't make a lot of sense for him to try harder than he did, because just, But anyway, that is history that I would strongly encourage everybody to go check out, get into, and really consider this idea that instead of putting all of our focus on promoting the idea of individual black people trying to get rich, if the goal is the empowerment of black people as a whole, then a more worthwhile pursuit would be various kinds of economic cooperation and forming economic cooperatives that really horizontally distribute the wealth and profits of the enterprises we're involved in, so that the largest possible number of us don't get rich, but get enough to be comfortable and to provide the food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education that we need. There's hours and hours and hours that we could say about worker co-ops, housing co-ops, education co-ops across the board. But just for now, I just want to leave you with the idea that supporting black business does not empower the black community. Black capitalism is still capitalism. Capitalism of all sorts is meant to exploit the worker and enrich and empower the employer, the capitalist overlord. It will never, can never, has never empowered the working class. And that if we want to get all black people free, or the largest possible number of black people actually free, actually enjoying our human rights, actually feeling a sense of liberation and self-determination, then the way for us to do that is through embracing the path of economic cooperation, political cooperation, military cooperation, unity, not individual achievement, but communities of people coming together to discuss how to cooperatively own and manage enterprises that lead to providing the goods and services that we need and economically enriching us so that the most large possible number of us are getting the basics of our lives taken care of. That's it. That's the episode. That's all we have for today. I appreciate each and every listener. MatuluShakur.com. Go check out the information about our Baba. Sign the petition for his clemency. Free the Land, mxgm.org is the website for my political home, the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. Revolutionary African Perspectives is the radio show on WRFG. That's WRFG.org to check out the radio show every Monday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And yeah, stay tuned. Be on the lookout for more of these Play with the Flame episodes. Peace to man, woman, and child.